set the context for us and made things easier for us for this session. Well, my name is Colonel Suhail Zaidi. I served in the Indian Army for around 23 years in a technical arm, and then I took premature retirement, joined CI, where I created a Center for Digital Transformation. And just a little while ago, I joined the MATE, which is a industry body which empowers the IT, electronics, and telecom hardware. So before we proceed ahead, I request the participants to briefly introduce themselves for the benefit of the audience. I'm sure most of them know you all, but I'll just request for a quick round. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Check. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Colonel Zaidi. Greetings to fellow panelists, greetings to all the attendees. I'm Jayesh Ranjan. As Secretary pointed out, while Secretary looks after the country as a whole, but in the federal structure, states also are doing lots of interesting things. So I work for the southern Indian state of Telangana in Hyderabad. And during this discussion, I'll be sharing what is the new work that we are doing in Web 3.0, blockchain, and other emerging technologies. Nice to be a part of this discussion.
Good morning. Hello, yes. Good morning, everyone. Sandra Rowe. I'm the CEO of the Global Blockchain Business Council, the GBBC, and we are the world's largest leading industry association focused on blockchain and digital assets. We're also very proud to say that Stacey Warden is also one of our board of directors. We're based in Switzerland, and we have members across over 100 jurisdictions and nearly 600 institutional members. And I will try to give an international perspective on what the regulatory landscape looks like today.
Good. I don't know if this is working. No. Hi, I'm Rahul Mathan. I'm a partner with a law firm called Trilegal, and I head its technology practice. I've been doing technology work for 25, 30 years. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. So now this is going to be a very crucial discussion, which will be a sort of intersection between the governance, the technology, financial inclusion, and the innovations which are happening. But before we get into the discussion proper, I'll just like to let people know about the India stack which is there, which has created a very good ecosystem for the industry to build on it. And plus, before the India stack, there is something called a Jam Trinity. I'm sure the Indians here would be aware of it, but there are international audience for their benefit. I'll just like to tell you about the Jam Trinity, which was Jan Dhan Aadhaar Yojana, which was basically creation of bank accounts for the citizens of the country. All citizens should have a bank account for the financial inclusion. Then was the Aadhaar, which is a 12-digit identification code for the citizens. Mr. R.S. Sharma was here yesterday, who is also part of the Algorand Foundation in India. He played a crucial role in the creation of that. And then the mobile penetration, I'm sure all of you are aware of it. With that as a background, sir, I'll request you to tell us how did you proceed ahead in getting the governance together for technology and innovations to work together. And before I let you speak, I'll also like to tell the audience that he is one of those regulators who gives equal importance to technology as well as innovation, for sure. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel Zaidi. So, as I mentioned, states in our federal setup enjoy considerable autonomy. While there are national frameworks, national programs, states have the privilege of selecting their own priorities, their own programs, whom they want to partner with, what approach do they want to take. So, as I said, I represent this state called Telangana, which may not be that well known to everyone, but I'm sure our capital city of Hyderabad would be known to everyone. So, since the last 9.5 years, Telangana is a new state, got created in June 2014. We have taken a very conscious decision that the state will become a very important enabler to to promote emerging technologies. And one of the first things which we did was to create a dedicated institution within the government, which is called the ET wing, the Emerging Technologies wing, to push this agenda, to ensure that the kind of focus that emerging technologies need is bestowed by the government. So this wing essentially does two things. One, of course, is to promote adoption of emerging technologies within the government agencies, because unless you practice what you preach, your credibility will be zero. And second is, of course, to build in creating an ecosystem. So who else are currently dabbling in that technology? Who are the large players? Who are the niche players? Who are the startups? Which are the academic institutions? Which are the global agencies? So we have chosen to work in 9 different kinds of emerging technologies, and I don't want to get into all of these. But the standard approach which we follow for all of these emerging technologies, one is that we create a framework. So the framework very clearly spells out what is the intent of the government. If you are showing seriousness about getting into something, what exactly are you committing to do? So are you going to create skills? Are you going to set up innovation spaces? Are you going to be the first mover of some use cases? Are you going to make data available? Are you going to make high performance computing available? So what exactly will you do? That framework is spelled out. The second, of course, as I said, is that we believe in being the first adopters of any of these technologies ourselves. And again, I feel very proud to share with you that in the last 9.5 years or so, between these 9 technologies that I speak about, we would have rolled out 50 plus use cases within the government. And some of these are amazing use cases. I mean, no one could have even imagined that such a use case is possible. Just to give an example, possibly I'll elaborate on that use case later if there's a specific question, but that is on remote voting. So as of now, as you know, remote voting is still very, very rarely followed. Even in Estonia, hardly 30% people do remote voting because of lots of doubts and uncertainties about the process. But we have been able to demonstrate in a live election situation that you can do remote voting. And this is also a very interesting confluence. I heard the secretary earlier speak about the use of AI. This is a very interesting confluence on how you can use AI and blockchain or Web 3.0 in facilitating that voting. So 50 plus such use cases is something that we have rolled out. And of course, bring as many partners, create that community, develop international partnerships. So Sandra is here. I may not be 100% precise, but my guess is that amongst Indian states, we were the first to become members of the GBBC. And I don't think there are too many members amongst the Indian states. So that is the kind of agility that you see an opportunity and you kind of decide to become a part of it. And and also partnerships with private sector. So since we are in the Algorand summit, I can share with you that we have chosen to work with Algorand and doing a very interesting work on carbon trading in Telangana. But we also work with, let us say, Broadridge, with Polygon and others. So choose the partners in different areas of their expertise. The last thing which I would like to mention is that who runs these programs, who are the members of this ET wing, the governance structure that I spoke about. One is that while we can't say that there is no talent in the government to run these institutions, we have always believed that there is far better talent outside the government to run these institutions, and it should be our responsibility to bring them inside. So we have been very fortunate to get talented people who have a background and understanding of these technologies to come and work for us on secondment, on contract. So I have a team of about half a dozen people, each of whom are from the open market and who have been selected to work in the government based on their track record, their merit, their ability. But for each of these technologies, there is a governance structure. So for, let us say, for artificial intelligence, the governance structure is called TAIM, the Telangana Artificial Intelligence Mission. For blockchain projects, it is called the Blockchain District. So it's a mix. The government representatives are there, but we also get people from academic institutions, from Government of India institutions like CDAC, and so on. And of course, large companies who are present in India, who have a lot of track record and domain expertise in that area, and representatives of startups. So it's a very kind of a participatory, a very collaborative governance structure. And I feel very happy that in the last 9.5 years, we have been able to deliver quite a lot.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. Before I come to you for further questions on it, I'll just go to Rahul here and seek his views on, for example, Telangana is way ahead, I would say, in terms of the intersection that I spoke of. You as a techno-legal person, what do you feel is the current position of India as a whole, taking all the states into account, and what is the scope for technology and innovations to grow?
So, of course, if we use Telangana as a benchmark, it's very difficult for the rest of the country to, in a sense, match up. So I'm going to actually step back and reflect on some of the things that Secretary Krishnan said, as well as you said, in relation to India's digital transformation. And India's digital transformation is not a blockchain-based digital transformation at this point in time. But it is a digital transformation. And my experience with digital transformation is that you always have to lead with use cases so that the benefits are evident. And once you lead with the use cases, understand that the benefits are self-evident, you then need to fit it within a policy landscape that is basically historical. What most people do is they try to pigeonhole this into existing regulatory frameworks. And very often you run up against obstacles, because I believe that's not the way to do it. I believe what we need to do is create policy frameworks that are appropriate for what the technology can do. So what India has done in many ways with its JAM and all of the digital public infrastructure that we've heard so much about this last year during the G20 is it has actually fostered a new regulatory framework, something that I like to call a techno-legal governance framework. This is particularly true, and the Secretary mentioned the new Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which is a law for the first time, I think anywhere in the world, has the words techno-legal actually in it. It reflects in it consent managers as an actual institutional entity. It uses technology artifacts to reflect legal principles. It does it best in the privacy space. It says that it is possible to, privacy law around the world says that you need to have various principles: data minimization, consent, notice, purpose limitation. It creates technology artifacts where all of these are reflected in the code, so that by participating in that code-based infrastructure, you're automatically complying with what around the world are understood to be the legal requirements for privacy. Why am I mentioning this? Because if you think about everything I've said, it's just a long, convoluted way of talking about smart contracts. Essentially, a contract is a private legal arrangement. And if you can already create contracts that are self-executing, contracts that have all the elements that are required in order for parties to understand their mutual rights and obligations, and then have it enforced itself without any legal framework, because that's sort of just the nature of the way it works. You actually have what India has done the other way around, which is taken the law, put it into the frameworks that the government has created. So my idea is that even though it may not appear so from the laws that we've passed and the general policy approach to blockchain in the government right now, I think the Secretary mentioned it's commercial and so we should tax it and nothing more than that. But that's not true. There is actually a deep societal understanding in India of how technology can actually be used in a smart contract kind of a way. And the seeds have been sown for this idea to actually be expanded now into these autonomous networks. So I believe that we're well positioned, even though it doesn't look like that, to use India's existing non-blockchain digital transformation to lay the seeds for a blockchain-based digital transformation. I think it's, I still think that we have to go to the non-controversial use cases, because there's a lot of, when we're trying to get the policy environment right, we should go for, land records. It's a problem that's very difficult to solve. The reason why it's difficult to solve is that those records are mutable. And if you go to the registrar, you find that someone has come before you and made some changes in the registrar, and suddenly the property you thought was yours is actually somewhere else. Blockchain eliminates that, and this is a policy objective that even the government wants to do. So work with those sorts of things. Don't try and mess up the financial system of the country, because everyone gets very irritated with that. So the L3s are really where I see, innovative L3s would be extraordinarily powerful in this current environment.
We'll come back to it later. Sandra, now I would seek your views from the global perspective, and where do you see us as in India growing in the innovations part of it?
So firstly, oh, it's working. I just want to say I will vouch absolutely Telangana leader for many years and appreciate Jayesh's leadership in spearheading many of the efforts. Well deserved. So this is a question I like to ask because I do go around the world speaking to different groups of people, so if I may.
Sure.
How many in the audience are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs? Even if you're not sure, if you think you might want to be an entrepreneur, raise your hand. Look at that. Okay. There's entrepreneurial spirit right in this room. This small snapshot right here tells me that it must be a very strong energy and entrepreneurial spirit. Well, let's think about the ingredients for success for any country in innovation. You need lots of really smart talent. India's got that, with great academic institutions. You need absolutely to have grounded policy and government officials who are supporting innovation in a responsible manner. You absolutely need to protect consumers from scammers and bad actors. What else do you need? You also need partnerships in the case of blockchain. So the very fact that Algorand is here, and by the way, I've heard many other companies in the space coming to India and wanting to be in India, just also indicates to me there is something going on here that's very positive. So from a policy perspective, what needs to happen here is really, I think, the collaboration and the continuing discussion around where are the guardrails? How do you promote the entrepreneurs that are here? Oh, and by the way, you need capital, of course, so we need to attract lots of investors to want to invest in India and in your companies. But also, how do we ensure that we protect people from getting scammed? Let's face it, whenever there's an emerging technology and there's potentially lots of money to be made, there will be bad actors. So how do we make sure that they do not spoil the good things that are going on? And I absolutely agree with you. Leading with use cases, don't talk about the tech first. Talk about the problem and what are you solving? Because it happens to be that a blockchain is the solution. If people understand that the solution actually is beneficial to society, things will fall into place. And so I appreciate in the last 24 hours, I have heard so many great companies and use cases here. I think we're off to a pretty good start.
Thank you, Sandra. I will refer to Rahul's one of the articles. He's also written a book, Third Way. And in one of his articles, he had mentioned about the three approaches of the government in digital economies, regulatory aspects, wherein he talked about US, which he says is more of market-driven system, then of China, which is a state-driven approach, and Europe, which is a rights-driven method that they are following. Now, sir, I'd like to ask you the question first in this, that regulators do have a challenge in identifying how much should be allowed for innovations to grow, keeping in mind the aspects of civil rights, the societal equality, and the national security for sure. So how do you create that balance, and how do you ensure that the balance is maintained in such kind of a regulatory aspect?
So it's a this is
Sandra has to always give. Yeah.
so it's obviously a very delicate balance. It's a tightrope. You would always like to promote more and more innovation, lots of new entrepreneurship, lots of new capital flowing into some areas. But as both Rahul and Sandra have mentioned, because of these possibilities, it also attracts bad actors. And as we are seeing in the case of crypto, the landscape in India is still very uncertain because we have just not been able to grapple with all these new evidences of frauds and volatility and all kinds of things which are happening. So it is a tough call for the regulators as well. But what we have done in Telangana, let me kind of speak about it. So instead of giving a hypothetical answer, I'll tell you something which is actually happening. We realized that for Web3, Web 3.0, again, there is tremendous potential. Land records matter, which Rahul referred to, has huge implications. It has tremendous multiplier because land today as an asset is a very fundamental kind of an asset. And lots of wealth in the society is logged or unlocked because of the way the records are managed or manipulated for that matter. So there are tremendous opportunities, but we also realized that, again, for some reasons because of crypto, the regulators are not comfortable in clearing anything which deals with Web 3.0. And as a result, we also realized since a couple of years ago or a few years ago that lots of talent that everyone is speaking about in India is actually leaving India, is fleeing India, is going to Dubai, is going to Singapore, and they're setting up their companies there. So when this came to our knowledge that this is something which is happening, we took a very bold decision and possibly a very important and a very timely decision also. What we have done is that since about a year, we have set up a regulatory sandbox related to Web3. And exactly as what Rahul mentioned, we invited companies to be a part of it. And we were very sure that we will not start with controversial use cases. So whatever use cases you want to tackle, we purposefully avoided, let us say, crypto-related use cases, etc. So minus crypto, the other kind of use cases are also very interesting. Asset tokenization is again a very important thing. We are seeing some very good use cases for DeFi in agriculture, in the MSMEs, and IPs for social media, and so on and so forth. So 8 startups are participating in this regulatory sandbox. But the way we have structured this sandbox is that throughout this year-long journey, not year exactly, about 6 to 8 months of journey, a team will monitor and mentor each of these startups. And this team has a mixed composition. There are legal entities, so Rahul himself and his company is supporting it. Many others are part of it. There are technology experts. And fortunately, we have got the buy-in of both state-level regulators as well as national-level regulators. So Reserve Bank, for example, as you know, the biggest pushback on crypto is coming from Reserve Bank, which is quite obvious also. But they have also decided to participate in our regulatory sandbox on a case-to-case basis. So whichever sandbox experiment is working on, let us say, some financial instruments, some tokens, they are willing to look at it and guide the regulatory process. So I guess this is the way forward. Unless you try out something when there is an element of lack of clarity, you will just not, I mean, you can hypothetically put all kinds of regulations, and then you will not know whether you are over-regulating or you are under-regulating, and only some episode of some gigantic proportions will shake you up, and then you will realize that you were wrong. So instead of treading that path, it is better to do it in a bottoms-up way. Understand what is being tried out, what will be the impact, what will be the harm, what are the risks, how to put those boundaries, how to ensure that boundaries are not crossed. So the work that we are doing, in my opinion, is very sensible and is the right way. The first cohort is about to complete. They have more or less finished their structured activities, and the team which has been assigned to each of them is now identifying what are the regulatory requirements or challenges or dark spots they encountered and what is the way forward. So after this gets over, we'll be announcing the second cohort in February. That is the plan.
Very interesting. Thank you. So, Rahul, coming back to you again, not keeping Telangana as a benchmark, what do you think should be our country's approach in terms of the regulatory aspect as compared to the three models we spoke of? Which path should India tread to achieve the maximum benefit?
Yeah, so look, I mean, what I say in the book is, once again, doubling down on this techno-legal approach, where I think, you know, we've tried enacting laws to keep technology companies at bay, and we found that it doesn't work because law lags technology by maybe even a year, and that's very often too late. And so how can we build regulations that are actually tech-enabled, as it were, so that the regulators have a more direct control over what they are regulating, how they're regulating. And so I'd like to take Jayesh's example of a regulatory sandbox and push it even further out. Because what is a regulatory sandbox? Ultimately, it's a constrained environment. You create a sort of a ring-fenced environment where you put, I don't know, 100,000 citizens or whatever the number is, and test out a relaxation of regulation for a finite period of time, and on the basis of that, come up with some sort of a policy which says, look, it makes sense now to have this regulation for this sector or to relax this regulation in the context of such and such. And then the theory is that you will then roll it out. But that's not where it should stop. To me, I think that given that everything we're going to implement is digital, we should be able to build metrics directly into that digital infrastructure so that state governments, central governments can monitor exactly how that is performing. When do big scams happen? It's when we have no way of visualizing the harm that is coming down the path. And that's because we're not monitoring it. Because we can only see it when it is too big. And at that point in time, we have to shut the whole company down, or we have to do all the things that are happening in the US right now. But what if we could monitor on the margin? We could see that there is some anomaly happening, it is heading in the wrong direction, and then intervene timely with regulation that instead of shutting the company down, pushes the company on a different path. To me, this is the advantage of having techno-legal regulatory approaches. Start with the regulatory sandbox, but continue out into the large-scale deployment. Don't wait till there is a scam. Don't wait till there is large-scale disaster. Have a team within government, and we're going to have to change the way we do government. We're going to have people actively monitoring what's happening in the sector and make changes in regulatory direction. This is sort of nudge type changes, but just slight incremental changes that constantly put things back on track. This is fantastical if you don't have a regulatory a technological underpinning, because it is actually not possible to do this real time in a country with 1.4 billion people. But when you have an entirely digital infrastructure, it is not only possible, it would be criminal if we don't do this. And I think that if we can adopt this sort of an approach, we're actually going to solve this big problem of scams in crypto and stuff like that. We can head it off well before it happens. I don't know if we can actually pull it off, but I think all the ingredients are there. As the other speakers have mentioned, we've got a government that is already trained in this because of the digital transformation that India has done for the last 15 years. We've got the talent outside of government that government is willing to access. We have not enough, but quite a few progressive regulators in government who are willing to embrace all of these things. So it is a perfect storm to create this sort of an environment in India. We've seen it done in Estonia, but if we do it at scale in a country with 1.4 billion people, you then show the world that this is the way to do regulation.
Great, thanks. So Sandra, what do you think from the India's perspective that we have heard so far and your experience globally? What is it that we can learn from the global initiatives and what can India teach others?
So, hello. Musical mics. I will have to say there's a couple things that I think we've observed over the last decade of watching, particularly the crypto evolution side of things. Number one, outright bans tend to drive innovation into dark places. And so, yes, you might reduce the volumes a bit, but the reality is the activity is still going on. And there are a number of countries, which I will not necessarily single out here, but they have suffered from the effects of thinking, well, if I just ban it, it will somehow go away and die, and it does not. And you end up with different problems. Countries that have implemented some form of we're going to monitor, we're going to try to learn as regulators and legislators. And don't get me wrong, I empathize greatly. There's a lot to learn and it's not easy. Those countries have tended to be able to at least try to embrace some clarity. And I'll give you one example. For anyone who was observing Brazil this year, they actually passed crypto legislation where the Central Bank of Brazil is the primary regulator, with CVM being the secondary regulator. What's significant here, and we've been working with the Central Bank of Brazil for the last 7 years, since actually I was at my former private sector job, I have to tell you the research and the knowledge sitting at the central bank is very deep in the digital currency and digital asset space. They have taken a very sort of pragmatic view of how they're going to look at this innovation. They have a sandbox as well. Sandboxes come in many different flavors. But the key is what actually, Raul, you mentioned, which is public-private partnerships, which is the government recognizing we don't have all the answers. This stuff is evolving every 6 months or even faster sometimes. How do we actually stay current? Well, increasing dialogue with private sector, increasing partnerships with good actors in the space, and trying to figure out what the right guardrails are. So, to me, those are the countries that have done well, and then the regulatory clarity, defining terms, coming up with even language issues right now. People say the same word, and they mean different things, even now. So the clarity of language that policy can potentially serve is also very helpful. And Switzerland, Singapore, the UK to some extent, Japan now has also provided more clarity. That helps business know, I have to register, I have to get a license, I have to go through this process. That is good for business.
Thank you. So one question I'd throw it open to the panel here is that crypto was one of the initiators of blockchain and it used blockchain extensively. But what do you feel is the effect of crypto on blockchain as a technology for innovations? Did it help or was it a restriction in innovations coming up? This is open to anybody who wants to answer.
It is working. So crypto as in currency.
Right.
Look, I think, so the anarchic nature of cryptocurrency, which is, the fact that you don't need a central bank, that, you don't need some sort of central agency to carry out commercial transactions, is very seductive. for all of us. I remember reading the Nakamoto paper and I was like, wow, this is incredible. We don't need governments. But the reality is we do need governments. And more importantly, governments don't like to be made redundant. And so, to answer your question specifically, crypto in many ways was making governments redundant. And that's not the way to do it. So I started my remarks by saying we have to go to the use cases. And your use case can't be to make the government redundant and then expect the government to pass a policy that says, yes, I want to become redundant. That's not the way it's going to work. Crypto, so to answer your question, I think perhaps it's not been useful to the larger cause. But the use cases of the underlying technology are incredibly powerful. Because at scale, all governments want reliability in the way in which they can carry out the functions that they're supposed to carry out. And all governments, no matter what it might appear, are embarrassed when they find that their own internal processes are inconsistent. And they're constantly trying to find consistency. And they're constantly trying to give certainty to people. It may appear not, but I've worked with the government for many years and I know that that's actually not the case. The government, and Jayesh probably knows this better, but it's better to hear it from me as someone outside who is constantly on behalf of my clients saying the government has been completely unreasonable. My experience is the government does not want to be. And if we can use this the underlying technology, not the crypto side of it, but the underlying blockchain certainty, to provide that certainty also in regulation and in systems, I see no reason why the government will not get to it. So to answer your question, and I know hindsight is 2020 and we can all sort of think of the counterfactuals, if we had started with the non-financial use cases, we perhaps would have gone a lot further down the road. But I don't know if we could have done the non-financial use cases without actually going through crypto the way it went. And quite frankly, what does it matter? We are where we are. We have many, many non-financial use cases. We've got many examples of how the underlying technology is useful in many, many ways. We've got, hackathons. We've got, I think, even here, we've got many people coming up with new innovative ideas. So we are where we are. And I think we've got to take it from here outward. So it's a bit of a moot point, whether the chicken should come first or the egg should come first. You're either going to have butter chicken or you're going to have an omelette. It doesn't matter.
Great. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I of course agree with his points, Rahul's points. I would also like to suggest that there are amazing use cases which are not relevant or not related to crypto at all. But these are the use cases which are today solving some of the most pressing problems, most pressing challenges that we face in governance and administration. And these are obviously people-centric problems. So blockchain as a technology has reached a new level of trajectory by itself. While it could have began through crypto, but today it is taking a shape which is completely unbelievable. I'll give you a couple of examples. So this example possibly is not very common across the world, but in India it's a very common phenomena. There is a phenomena called chit funds, like let's say bottom of the pyramid people or middle class kind of people, working class kind of people. They participate in it in large numbers. They contribute small savings every month, and then the huge number of subscribers. And at the end of the month or at the end of the cycle, a large part of it is given to some member, and then it continues. So currently, it is an extremely non-transparent, very opaque, very mismanaged kind of a system. In fact, at one point in time, it appeared that a few governments in India will fall because of these chit fund scams and all, and it may still happen. But we have found, again, in our state of Telangana, a very elegant solution of regulating the entire chit fund management and bringing more transparency, ensuring that what in Hindi is called hera fairy, that hera fairy does not happen, using a very innovative blockchain solution called T-Chits. And we tried it out in Telangana and it worked. It has received multiple national awards, international recognitions. Doors of at least 10 other states were open to that particular company. Land records is another area where lots of hera-fairy happens. In fact, I hope it is not true, but someone once told me that you can, if you have that kind of a courage, you can actually buy and sell Charminar also. It's a very old monument in Hyderabad. You can claim that it is yours and then I can sell it to you because of the gray and the loopholes in our laws, etc. So amazing good things are happening. I spoke about the remote voting or the e-voting case. So let us focus on how the technology can really advance some of these challenges and problems that we face. But at the same time, it's not that we need to kind of close or turn our backs to crypto. In fact, I'm very happy that G20, which concluded successfully under India's presidentship recently, this theme was spoken about. Our Prime Minister himself mentioned that there is now need to have global standards on crypto regulation. So there is enormous potential in that as well. But how do you have a universal set of regulations and how everyone considers it to be important to create that kind of a balanced regulation which promotes innovation, but at the same time protects common investors' interest, which is eventually the biggest responsibility for the government. So I won't say that we can completely dissociate blockchain and crypto. At some point in time, with better regulations and global standards, crypto also will become a very accepted way of financial transactions.
So I'm going to take a slightly different, because we're in a panel, we need to have some different views. So I'm going to take a slightly different view on the utility. So first of all, if a group of people decide something is useful and they use it, as long as it's not doing harm and it's good for society, then frankly, what does it matter what it is if it's getting something from point A to point B in the case of value transfer? I'm going to give an example. So the World Food Program and GBBC Giving, which is our charitable arm, are working on something called Food for Crisis. And we're looking at developing tracking donor funds across all mediums, meaning fiat currency, crypto, stablecoin, e-vouchers, mobile phone credits, it doesn't matter. What we're saying is we're holding accountable when donor funds come in, which by the way is in the billions in the development world, and disaster relief. How do you say to the donor, it went to the community that it was supposed to go to? 85% went to the community. 10% was spent on transportation and logistics. And in that level of granularity, and by the way, we don't need to know the individual's identity, nor do we need to know, the World Food Program knows that, but the system doesn't need to know that. It needs to verify that the funds went to the people who are supposed to get them. So in this situation, my view is I don't know and I can't tell you that it's going to be a crypto world in a given location, or it's going to be fiat or e-vouchers or mobile phone credits. But the point being is we're being agnostic about the medium of transfer and it going as quickly and securely as possible to the end need, as opposed to it's crypto. So I think one of the things that we need to think about in crypto world a little bit better is that value transfer mechanism. By the way, most blockchains, so you all know, you need crypto to actually make it go and for the transaction to complete. So you actually do need crypto as a utility. It's not just about the speculation, which is where I think a lot of people end up going, and I think it's a narrow view of the world. And again, if a vast majority of a community or a country decide this is useful, I would say good, as long as there's guardrails to protect against bad actors. And if it's not useful, people will not use it. Free markets.
Yes, please. So can somebody give him a mic?
Hi everyone, it's Rahman. I'm the founder and CEO of Easy Investor. Sir, with due respect to our speakers, I just like to add some points. And the thing is that you asked that is crypto is profitable for blockchain technology. The thing is, sir, blockchain technology is very vast and crypto is just a part of currency of it. Like blockchain has decentralization, it has smart contract, it has NFTs, it has DeFi, it has DAOs. So crypto is the one part that which is the currency part, but most of the people we think that the blockchain means crypto, that means scam. That is not the thing. And for crypto, people think only the Bitcoin and that thing.
I think that has been clarified. Is there a question in this?
Yeah, I just like to add that the thing is that crypto, if someone use it properly, like using the, because in crypto proper thing there is a validator, there is so many things which can be totally transparent, but some of the scammers that they scam, that doesn't mean the total technology is wrong. That's I want
Thank
to
you.
clarify. And one thing I just wanted to
We
add.
can discuss it offline. Let
Yeah,
the
definitely,
panelists,
definitely.
finish their.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, yes, please. If there's a question, panel will be happy to take. Please. Can somebody pass the mic there?
Thank you so much. My question is to Rahul. You said that regulation should change with technology. Well, my question is that I have been a financial sector regulator for 35 years, and we worked extremely hard to keep our regulations technology neutral. What would you say that we were totally misguided? Because especially in SEBI, we kept we were very particular that all regulation has to be technology neutral. So you should say that we are totally wrong?
No, actually, you should continue to do that, because when you say technology neutral, the way I understand it is that you're neutral to what technology is being used. You don't prescribe this in terms of a particular type of technology, so that all technologies can be used. Because if you preference a particular technology, you then create an unfair opportunity to those who execute that technology. I'll take it one step further, which is that you should actually not be, despite whatever we're saying, you should not be prescribing the policy imperatives in technology terms. But you should be well aware of technology terms, because increasingly, and SEBI is a great example, the amount of trades that are happening in the old-fashioned way on the the floor of the exchange, I mean, no one does it. It's all algorithmic right now. So most of those are algorithmic. Now, if you want to regulate algorithmic trading, you have to have a technology hat as you're regulating algorithmic trading. And I think that applies increasing, so the financial sector and all the financial sector regulators are at, in many ways, the forefront of this, because technology advances around the world fastest in the financial sector. And you see it in India as well, UPI with our payments, fastest in the financial sector. And so my experience of financial sector regulators, and you're mentioning Brazil, once again, extremely advanced. They're looking to tokenize private money as well, which I thought was really, really impressive. But I think that given how deeply technology is spreading through the whole of society, even non-financial regulators need to have that kind of an approach to regulation. So, in summary, make sure that the regulatory specifications are neutral to the technologies that are available. Because if you don't, you're going to preference a particular type of technology. Don't make your crypto regulations about Polygon and Bitcoin and forget about everything. Just talk about it in more general terms. But always understand that the principles in the law are going to be implemented through technology, and so make sure that you understand how those general principles are actually implementable in a technology context. And that's sort of the only comment that I would make on that.
Can I just add one thing about the complexity of what we're going into? So for anyone who's not following IOSCO's DeFi public consultation that just closed, they will be putting out a DeFi report, basically global framework guidance on how DeFi will be or should be regulated. What is Section 2, I believe, was actually very controversial for a lot of people. It refers to terminology related to responsible persons. And in a world where there is a company and a physical address and a group of people to point to, it's a very clean way of saying responsible people are here. This is the organization. As we increasingly move towards decentralization or people who are, may not be people, they may actually be smart contracts or nodes and validators, the issue then becomes who is responsible persons? Or what is responsible persons? And this is where we're going to have the public dialogue with private sector and regulators and legislators about how that gets redefined or reimagined potentially. Because at the end of the day, somebody needs to be responsible. The question now is, what is it? It's not necessarily a company.
Thank you. Session was just warming up, but as all good things come to end very soon, so our time is also up. And thank you all for listening to us and such a good audience. And thank you all the panelists for